Outside the south gate of a kingdom's capital stands a wooden pole, 3 spans tall. Beside it, a notice. Anyone who carries this pole to the north gate will be given 10 measures of gold. No one moves. 10 measures is no small sum, and any man in the crowd could shift a length of timber. But the thing has a wrongness to it. The government of this kingdom has not said a word that could be relied upon in living memory. The crowd grows, and no one wants to be the first fool to step forward. The notice comes down. A new one goes up. Carry it to the north gate, and the reward is 50. Now the crowd is even more afraid. The higher the price, the more it looks like a trap. At last, one idler shoulders his way out, half believing, hoists the pole, and lugs it the length of the city to the north gate. An official counts out 50 measures of gold on the spot, not a grain short, and puts them in his hands. Within an hour, the whole city knows. Those 50 measures did not buy a piece of wood. Someone was taking a measurement of exactly how much in this kingdom the word of the government was still worth. The man taking the measurement was named Wei Yang. 20 years from now, he will die by another law that he himself wrote. For the first time, the camera turns west. On the board, we have been watching for 12 episodes. One state has always sat at the far western edge, Qin. Twice in the last 2 episodes, it appeared as a quiet name. No summits, no hegemony, no part in anyone's mutual devouring. Now it is time to look at it directly. Qin lived intermingled with the wrong tribes of the West, half farming and half herding. When the lords of the Central Plains held their summits, they did not send for Qin. They filed it with the barbarians. This had been its humiliation for centuries. In 361 BC, a new ruler took the throne, 21 years old, Duke Xiao of Qin. The first thing he did was issue a proclamation and send it across the known world. It contained a remarkable sentence: a reigning lord, admitting in public. The other lords look down on Qin. There is no greater disgrace. And then he named his price. Whoever can make Qin strong, I will share this country's land with him. It was a job posting written in the language of national shame. In the East, a frustrated man read it and went west. That man was Wei Yang, a distant prince of the ruling house of the small state of Wei. At this point, a minor retainer in the household of Gongshu Kuo, chancellor of the state of Wei. Gongshu Kuo fell gravely ill, and the king of Wei came to visit. If you were gone, the king asked, to whom should I entrust the state? Kuo said, my retainer Wei Yang, young, but a man of rare gifts. Hand him the entire kingdom. The king said nothing. Kuo then cleared the room, lowered his voice, and added, if your majesty will not use him, you must kill him. Do not let him cross the border. The king humored the dying man and left. The moment the king was gone, Kuo summoned Wei Yang and said, I put my duty to the king before my duty to you. I just advised him to kill you. Run. Wei Yang did not move. He said, if the king will not take your advice to employ me, why would he take your advice to kill me? He did not run. And the king of Wei, exactly as predicted, neither employed him nor killed him. From his very first scene, this man reads power more coldly than anyone around him. After Gongshu Kuo died, Wei Yang went west into Qin, and through a favorite of the duke's named Jingjian, won an audience with Duke Xiao. At their first meeting, he held forth on the way of the ancient sage kings. The duke dozed off, and afterwards scolded Jingjian. "What kind of pedant have you brought me?" At the second, he spoke of the way of the great kings of old. Still the duke was not interested. Jingjian had taken the scolding, but Wei Yang said, "Give me one more chance." At the third meeting, he spoke of how to make a state rich and an army strong, how to farm, how to fight, how to wind an entire kingdom into a single cord. This time, the duke leaned in, and the two of them talked for several days and nights together. The histories preserve one detail. The duke was so absorbed that, without noticing, he kept inching his knees forward across the mat, closer and closer to the man, and after days of it, was still not tired of listening. Later, Wei Yang told Jingjian the truth of it. The way of the sage kings takes effect too slowly. Generations, centuries. What ruler can wait that long? I offered him a road to strength he could walk in his own lifetime. That is why he leaned in. He carried several doctrines in his pack. He sold only the one the customer wanted to buy. Before the reforms, there was a debate at court. The old ministers said, "One who does not follow the ancient ways cannot govern." Wei Yang answered, "There is more than one road to order a realm. If it benefits the state, there is no need to imitate the past." That sentence was the whole age speaking through him. The old rules were being dismantled, one by one. The duke gave his word, and Wei Yang began to rebuild Qin into a machine. The first law: register the entire population in groups of 5 households and 10, set to watch and guarantee one another. If one household broke the law, all 10 were punished together. Report a wrongdoer, and you were rewarded as if you had cut down an enemy in battle. Hide one, and you were punished as if you had surrendered to the enemy. Then came the core gear of the machine: rank by military merit. From now on, one thing alone fixed a person's standing, high or low: how many enemy heads he had cut off on the battlefield. One severed head of an armored soldier raised your rank by 1 degree, with land and a house to match. Even if you were born into the royal clan, without military merit, you could not be entered on the rolls of the nobility. Hold on to this moment. In every story we have told, a person's identity was fixed at the instant of birth. Born the son of a noble, you were a noble. Born the son of a farmer, you were a farmer. Into that wall of blood, Wei Yang cut the first crack. A head could be traded for a rank. The son of a farmer could now earn, by killing on the battlefield, what his ancestors could not have reached in their dreams. A century and a half later, that crack would become a flood. As for the songs, the documents, ritual, and music, the very things the old man of our last episode had guarded with his life, Wei Yang's laws listed them plainly among the vermin of the state. A man who asks only how the state grows strong has no use for a class of scholars asking how a person should live. In the first year, hundreds, then thousands, came to the capital to complain that the new laws were intolerable. Just then, the crown prince broke the law. The law could not punish only commoners and spare the heir, but the heir was the future ruler and untouchable. Wei Yang said, "The law fails to run because those above break it first." So he punished the prince's 2 tutors. One of them, Prince Qian, had his nose cut off. From that day, no one in Qin dared so much as discuss the new laws. And from that day, there was a man at court who kept a cloth to his face and withdrew behind a closed door, seen by almost no one for years on end. He did not flee. He did not protest. He stayed inside Qin, inside the reach of the law that had unmade his face. And from behind that door, he watched the lawgiver ride out among his guards year after year, and waited for the one thing that would change everything, for the old duke to die first. In very nearly the same year as Wei Yang's first reforms at the other end of the earth, a marginal kingdom to the north of the Greek world that the Greeks also despised as half-barbarian, Macedon, saw a man named Philip take its throne and forge a loose people of hill-dwellers into the most fearsome army of the age. And in that same year his son was born, and was named Alexander. 2 frontier kingdoms, each sneered at by its civilization's heartland, were at the same moment grinding the same kind of blade. And within a few years, each would swallow the old world that had looked down on it. History rhymes sometimes, without announcing itself. And the machine of Qin began to show what it could do. 10 years on, nothing dropped on the road was picked up by another's hand. There were no bandits in the hills. The people threw themselves into the state's wars and dared not brawl in private quarrels. A father and son, working the same field, would borrow a hoe and hand it back with the stiff courtesy of strangers. A household that failed to report its neighbor's offense was cut in 2 at the waist. The road was safe because everyone was watching everyone. Qin moved its capital to Qianyang. Wei Yang led an army against Wei, the state that had once sheltered him and nearly killed him. The Wei commander was Prince Ang, his own friend from his years there. With the armies facing off, Wei Yang sent Prince Ang a letter. "We were friends once. I cannot bear to fight you. Let us drink together, swear a pact, and each pull our armies back." Prince Ang came to the feast and was seized on the spot. Wei Yang shattered the leaderless Wei army. His law knew no friends. Neither, it turned out, did his soldiers. The king of Wei ceded land, moved his capital away from the border, and sighed, "How I regret not listening to Gongshu Kuo." For this victory, Wei Yang was enfeoffed with 15 towns in the region of Shang, and given the title Lord of Shang, Shang Yang. From here, that is his name. He stood at the summit a subject could reach. It was then that a man named Zhao Liang came to see him. Shang Yang asked, "How does my governance of Qin compare with that of the great minister Bai Lixi of old?" Zhao Liang did not take the flattery on offer. Bai Lixi, he said, rose from herding cattle to govern Qin. And in his years of power, he never rode in a carriage when the day was hot, never travelled with an armed guard. When he died, the men and women of Qin wept in the streets. Then he turned to Shang Yang's own life. "You go out with dozens of war chariots behind you, hemmed in by armoured guards. Without a single one of them, you dare not leave your gate. The men you have wronged fill the kingdom. The prince, the noseless Prince Qian, the whole of Qin pressed flat under your laws. Your position is as precarious as the morning dew, that the first sun burns off. Why not hand back your 15 towns, go water a garden in the countryside, and seek a quiet end? Shangyang did not listen. Anyone who has watched the earlier episodes may think, here, of another man, the one who, on the fullest day of his career, untied his own mooring rope and sailed away. Shangyang heard the same advice. He chose to stay. 5 months later, Duke Shao of Qin died. The crown prince took the throne. The man behind the closed door had outweighted the duke who shielded the lawgiver. Years of silence ended in a single sentence. Prince Qian led the accusation. The Lord of Shang is plotting revolt. Shangyang ran. By nightfall, he reached the Qin frontier and tried to take a room at an inn. The innkeeper did not recognize him and refused him by the rule. I am sorry. By the law of the Lord of Shang, an innkeeper who lodges a traveler without papers is punished along with him. Shangyang stood for a long time outside the door of his own law. The histories record the single sentence he spoke that night. Alas, that the making of laws should come to this. That sentence has a name in Chinese: to be caught in the net of one's own making. The maker of the law, trapped to death by his law. He fled into Wei. The men of Wei, who hated him for the trick that had captured Prince Ang, sent him straight back to Qin. With nowhere left to go, he returned to his own fief of Shang, raised troops in haste to defend himself, was defeated and killed. The body was carried back to Xianyang and torn apart by chariots, 5 horses, 5 directions, and displayed. His entire clan was put to death. King Hui of Qin announced to the world, "Let no man rebel as Shangyang did." The story is one cut short of finished. That new king, who ordered Shangyang pulled apart by horses, the very prince who had once been disgraced on his account, did he repeal Shangyang's laws? Not one. The group responsibility remained. The ranks by military merit remained. The whole machine ran on exactly as before, not a single gear removed. It ran more and more smoothly, and in the end it rolled over 6 kingdoms and crushed them into one. The death of Shangyang was, precisely, the triumph of Shangyang's law, a law so strong that not even its maker was an exception to it. The rules he wrote outlived every man who used them, and outlived the dynasty that killed him. For more than 2,000 years, every man who climbed onto the throne was still building on the foundation he laid. What Shangyang had really written was not a set of laws for one kingdom. It was the underlying code of a machine for running an empire. Registration and surveillance, reward and punishment, the state reaching past every lord and clan to grip each subject directly. And that code would still be quietly running under every dynasty that called itself China, long after anyone remembered the name of the man who first wrote it down. Only, never again did anyone dare invite the songs and the rites back into the court of Qin. Once the machine was running, the 6 kingdoms of the East shivered, all at once, for the first time. They saw it clearly. That former barbarian state in the West was no longer the Qin it had been. But their answer was not to rebuild themselves into machines. Reform was too painful, too slow, too costly in enemies. They chose another road. They joined hands. And so an entirely new profession was born. These were men with not an inch of land, not a single soldier, only a tongue and a head full of calculation. Today in one ruler's court, tomorrow in another's carriage, they treated the whole world as a board of chess and turned it over with a sentence. Next time, the alliances and the men who talked them into being